Whenever we try to take on a massive public project, like decarbonizing our energy grid or rebuilding hollowed-out infrastructure, we are told the exact same thing. There simply isn't enough money. Politicians and commentators love to compare the national economy to a household budget. They present the nation as a family that has maxed out its credit cards, warning that we have to tighten our belts to survive. Once policy is framed as a hunt for cash, the conversation immediately shifts. Instead of investing directly, the government looks for private capital, transferring immense public infrastructure assets over to private investors to entice them into the project. Selling off public assets was historically marketed as a way to boost efficiency and create jobs. In practice, however, these deals often end with a hollowed-out workforce and reduced capacity for the public, as the new owners shift focus from maintaining a utility toward generating an immediate financial return. We are now facing the ticking clock of a global climate transition, yet action is stalled by the assumption that we must wait for private finance to step in and rescue the public sphere. Operating on the fiction of an empty pot of money forces us to prioritize financial metrics over physical reality, virtually guaranteeing that our attempts at economic transformation will fail. The economist John Maynard Keynes understood exactly how backward this thinking is. His core rule for public works was simple: if a project is physically doable, a society can afford it. He pointed out that when people ask where the money will come from to build houses, they are entirely ignoring the actual physical ingredients required for construction. Houses are built with bricks, mortar, concrete, and the sweat of skilled labor. If those materials exist and the workers are available, the money is just an organizational tool to put them to work. The exact same logic applies to modern infrastructure. Constructing a massive outback solar array requires millions of panels, heavy machinery, and complex engineering. Building the future is a massive exercise in material deployment, not spreadsheet balancing. The defining task for a society is organizing its existing human and material capacity. If the labor, the technology, and the physical materials are present, the project is doable and therefore affordable. This does not mean a government can spend without limits. The constraints on a society are very real, but they are physical. A society is limited by its total productive capacity, the timing of its projects, and the physical availability of raw materials pulled from the earth. If you try to shift those resources faster than the economy can physically supply them, you push demand too high and generate inflation. Managing that material distribution is the actual discipline required for large-scale projects. For a monetarily sovereign government, taxes function as a release valve for the economy. Rather than collecting money to pay for projects, the government uses taxation to delete currency from the private sector to keep the total supply in balance. This process removes purchasing power from the public, carving out a non-inflationary space where real, physical resources can be redirected toward public projects without the government and the citizens fighting over the same limited supply. Once you view taxes as a mechanism for resource restraints and allocation, the paralyzing comparison between a national economy and a household budget completely falls apart. Many political strategists and economists know these financial constraints are a fiction, yet they continue to speak in orthodox fiscal language to sound prudent or responsible to the media. Speaking as though government spending on one goal automatically forces a sacrifice somewhere else creates a psychological trap. It strengthens the exact fiction that blocks serious policy from passing. By endlessly repeating this myth of scarcity, leaders actively destroy the public understanding required to attempt genuine economic restructuring. Adopting the language of your opponents does not win the argument. It surrenders the entire framing of the debate, trapping society in an artificial state of limitation. We have to completely change the questions we ask. Instead of focusing on how the government will pay for a transition, we need to ask what must be reduced, redirected, or taxed to free up the physical capacity to build it. The focus must shift to practical logistics. What new investment is needed to expand our supply side? How quickly can we build? And how do we sequence the spending so it doesn't outrun the economy's ability to respond? The climate transition represents a massive industrial mobilization, a restructuring on the scale of the world's most significant historical shifts. It requires scrapping carbon-heavy systems and building entirely new productive capacities in their place. If a society has the materials, the workers, and the political will to do something, the only decisive task left is to organize those resources in line with public purpose. Anything else is a distraction dressed up as responsibility.